That's the only way to do it, is to just jump in with 2 feet. Like I said earlier, like you just got to go for it. And
That's awesome.
you're never going to learn something by watching hours of YouTube videos or going to school and learning about the theory of filmmaking or the theory of journalism. Go through what it's like to chase a story and break something, or if you're a filmmaker, like grab a camera, like shoot stuff. You got to
Yeah.
just go in and do it.
Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have my good friend here.
How's it going, man? Happy to be back.
No, it shouldn't be about anything. Like, this is one life.
Yep, one life? Like, fucking do it.
My guy.
Like, she just got it. She totally understood it.
20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies.
And it tells a story. I want to tell a story.
Talented podcaster and content creator, Jacob Racco. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Thanks for having me on the show. I'm honored, man. This is my first guest appearance on a podcast.
Yeah. I know, isn't it a surreal experience? I've only done, I think, one or two podcasts in the past since I've started my own podcast. And it's always like, a novelty for me to be on the other end, whether it's, as a guest or maybe I'm an actor or a stand-in. It's always surreal for me to be in front of the camera as opposed to behind. So I'm sure you're going through the same experiences I've endured.
Yeah, I mean, it's different because usually I'm on the other end, like hosting, so I have to prepare and everything. So it's kind of nice not having to prepare for a podcast, just having to shoot the breeze with my guy over here, fellow Kujin over here.
Yeah, Paisan. I know, right? I know. I saw your last name. I'm going through the questions, researching who you are. And I'm like, this guy's definitely Italian. So we got to bring it up at some point because we're just proud people, right? And if you find another Italian, you got to, say it loud and proud, right? So
that's the only reason why I'm doing your show. I only do shows if the other host is also Italian.
There you go. That's right. Very discriminative. I love it. But you know what? You'll know you have a great time because it's an Italian podcast. Look at me, right? No, that's definitely an Italian thing to say. But appreciate you coming on. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest. After we connected on your own podcast, seeing your team operate in Ottawa when I was a behind-the-scenes director for the national tour of prolific comedian Nima Naz. And upon meeting you in your incredibly contemporary and uniquely expressive podcast studio, I have to say it was really cool, really urbanesque. You were hosting Nima Naz and fellow comedian Andrew Packer. I immediately became fascinated with your highly elaborate production of Down to the Wire podcast. A lot of great things to talk about. I've captured that in the behind-the-scenes vlog as you've seen me post, and thank you again for complimenting me. I really appreciate that. It means a lot as a creative, to always hear that recognition. So I had a lot of fun putting it together. You guys are a fun group of people, and the admirable quality about it was kind of like you guys were just boys, like getting together and like producing something that meant something to you, but it was didn't have like a serious undertone or like some sort of hidden agenda. It was just kind of like a laxed, casual kind of environment. Would you agree?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, you captured the studio beautifully with your video. The studio looked really good. But yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do with the studio. It's got that cozy feel to it. It's got the brick interior and the people that come with it too, that we have it Down on the Wire. We're just trying to create an environment, that feels accepting for everyone to be a part of, and just trying to create a community. So I really appreciate you saying that. You like the vibe you walked into, because that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, as a director, right, I'm very perceptive and observant, so I kind of like take it all in, and that's how I was able to capture the shots, and do it just because I kind of treat it like I make it personal for the viewer. So I knew you guys would be potentially watching it, so I wanted
100%,
to, right? So I wanted to capture it in a way where it's like getting everything, like the Spider-Man cookie jar or the bust. I can't remember what it was, or like just all the intricate like little pieces of decor on the shelving. The monkey with the headphones on. That was a striking piece, right? I even posted about it on my own Instagram page because it was I don't know why, it just drew me in. I thought it was very thought-provoking. Yeah, and those kind of pieces again, like that's what all as a creative, as a director, I should say, does is like pieces all those things together, and making it something on its own, right? So. I was really had a fun time kind of taking in the podcast show. I see that it's co-hosted with your close friend John Bals. Is that correct? Bals, yeah. And where the two of you, you discuss an array of topics that revolve around current events and pop culture. So again, I love that youthful aspect about it. Targeting the millennials, and you guys seem like you found like a niche, and are doing well from what I've seen. But I
Appreciate
want to know from you, like what is your professional background as a creative individual?
I don't think I don't have a professional background before. I just kind of jumped into it with 2 feet. You know, I didn't.
Right.
I've been learning as I go ever since I started this whole thing. But yeah, I started the podcast in 2018 in my mom's basement
That's
back when I
crazy.
was living in Burlington. It was
Right,
just
right.
we had one little mic on a filing cabinet and just 5 dudes hanging around this mic, just talking about. At that time, it was sports, and the show was still called Down to the Wire.
Right.
And then I just kind of fell in love with that aspect of it, of that. Once a week I got to hang out with some of my friends, and it brought us together. And then people started to listen, and then those people would start to see me on the street, and they would like give me little anecdotes from episodes, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, we're kind of creating a little bit of like a community, which is awesome. But my friends didn't fall in love with the podcast as much, so then I was like, okay, when I go back to school in September, I'm going to bring it up to Ottawa. So then I hit up John, and he lives out in Halifax. So over the summertime, he was back at home, and I called him up, and he was hammered. Just like, hey, man, you want to do this podcast with me? Because he has a background in journalism.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's do it. And then we get to school, and I think he like kind of forgot.
He forgot about the proposal. Yeah.
Yeah. But we brought it up to school, and then we started recording it in my bedroom, and then we kept it going, and then brought it to a studio on campus at Carleton. Yeah, and then COVID hits, then we saved up some money and then got our own studio, which is a studio that you checked out.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't really have a professional background. I just knew I wanted to do it because I fell in love with the idea of creating a community. And I thought that was a really, I don't know, like a real powerful thing to
Captivating. Yeah. The reason what I bring up professional background, what I mean is like, were you always dabbling in creativity or the arts? Were you like a filmmaker, photographer? Like for myself, I'm a film director with that background. And then I've kind of ventured off into the podcast, not only to connect and establish a community like yourself, but also to expand and leverage a network to garner me more clients. So were you approaching it the same way, or were you kind of just like, hey, never been creative, I just thought this would be a cool creative venture, I'll try it out?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of already a little creative. I mean, I
Okay,
used
nice.
to I had this friend of mine in high school. We used to we wanted to create a show that mimicked the Tonight Show, where like I would be the host, and then he would come in and he would do impersonations of celebrities.
Okay, cool.
And we just kind of messed around with it. We never actually like shot it and filmed it. But then I also used to act and model as a kid. My mom was my agent. Classic.
Okay, great. Yeah. Italian mom, I should
Yeah.
add that. that makes a difference, buddy.
She took control. And then when I went to Carleton for school, I went for journalism because I wanted to have a career in broadcast journalism.
Right.
Maybe be like that guy on Sports Center or something like that.
Got
and then journalism was it was kind of interesting because I ended up getting. They had a really strict rule in the journalism course that I took at Carleton, where if you failed any course, even if it was an elective, you got kicked out of the program. So first year was the best vacation of my life. So I messed around a little bit. Okay. And I failed an elective course that had nothing to do with the degree, like the main journalism degree. And then I got kicked out of the program. So I was like, damn. And then I tried to fight to get back into it because the next year they got rid of that rule, and they're like, no, like you're grandfathered into it. And I remember I had a conversation with the department head at Carleton Journalism, and she made it seem like this is the end of the line for you, man. Like, you really messed up. You're not going to have a career in journalism. Like, media. Wow. Like, this was the end of the line for you. Like, this is the most prestigious program, whatever. Like, you really
yeah.
And I was like, I failed a class in social work. Like, it's just like, it's
like, I don't understand. Like, my grades, I'm presuming your grades are upstanding and other.
They were good in the journalism related courses. So
right.
That was my
So
argument.
because you took a course on like the environment of soil, and failed it. No, seriously. Like when I was at Ryerson University, or better known as Toronto Metropolitan now, that's what would happen. I would take courses that were literally like unrelated to marketing management, like the Third Reich. There was a whole course on Nazi Germany, and if I failed that, you're telling me I'd be kicked out? Like you're saying,
it's kind of a red flag if I aced the course.
Yeah, right. Like, why is this guy getting 100 in the Third Reich? You know what I mean? So you could argue that against them, and then you see their mind explode as you're telling them. Like, so you're saying journalists should understand right-wing activism? No,
man, I ended up failing out, and then she made it seem like it was the end of the line. She's like, "Oh, good luck getting a job with CBC now. Like, you're not going to get a job in any place in Canadian media." And it's just funny because that really motivated me to really push down to the wire this thing that I always wanted to
like double
create.
down on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I created it shortly after that. And a few years later, we ended up producing a whole segment for CBC. So I didn't end up working for them; they ended up working with me.
So you're saying down to the wire. So this these sequence of events with getting kicked out of school or getting rejected in a way was the catalyst for you to begin down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean, because that would have been before I started it all. I mean, the idea was a bit of a pipe dream in high school with a friend of mine, and we just never got around to it. And then this happened, and then that following summer, I guess, is when I would have started it. I guess the catalyst would have been, though, I was in like, honestly, to keep it real, I was in a little bit of a dark place when I started the podcast, and I was really kind of seeking, I want to create a space and an environment where people can feel welcomed and have an escape from reality. Because that's what I needed. I needed that. I needed an escape from the real world and just a place where I can go, have fun, laugh, be around people that, you can share like you can share laughs with, and they care about you. So yeah, I fell in love with that aspect of it more than anything, and I wanted to create something that was an escape. The same way that if someone's having a bad day, they'll just crank The Office for like 6 hours straight. Like I wanted to create that, you know what I mean?
Something like something a coping mechanism that soothes them. I can relate to that for sure. There are days when I just don't want to do anything. Sometimes I go to video games or junk food. It depends. It depends on my For me, man, it's like Netflix crime docs. I don't know what it is. Like I just love that. Yeah, like
people love those right now.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping some people will eventually choose the Down to the Wire podcast when they're feeling down. Because I need a laugh right now, and then they just come to us.
100%. The for me, the way I consume your content is from your Instagram. I see I love those. I call it snackable content. So it's just like, I think you guys better excel on those kind of sound bites, like those catchy, like, because you guys are very observant and you guys take like news articles. You were doing that with Nima and Andrew Packer, like events that were happening and like what's your take on them. So I thought those were hilarious. But again, like you guys are still young and the podcast is still young as mine is. So it's constantly evolving, as you know, right? And you don't know where it's going to kind of take you. But the fact is that you pursued this venture and you've come this far, is commendable. Are you now completely removed from journalism? Like, do you have a career in that, or is this something you do full time with regards to the podcast?
I think this is how I pursued my career in journalism. I feel like, because we do have that journalism aspect to it, because we talk about in our podcast, we call it the back page news, which is where we find really weird, obscure, and like odd headlines and just stories that are happening around the world that people don't know about. We dig on the internet, bro. We find some crazy stuff going on that's really like funny at its core and also just interesting stories. And then that's the kind of news that we're presenting to people, because you're still learning something new. It's still interesting. It's just, it's funny in the nature of the stories that we're talking about, because there's some weird stories going on that we find. And then
100%.
Also too, we have people on the show to tell their stories as well. So you're obviously there for Nima and Andrew Packer, and we just try to keep elevating, keep it going, because like now we're starting to interview more people that we talk about in the news. So like there's crazy stories that are going on. Like, for example, one of the stories I think we did with Nima was I think there was a story about a priest who left the clergy to sell pig semen with his new sexologist lover.
That's funny. Yeah.
So you just find weird stories going on in the world. So now we're trying to take to the next level and invite those people on the podcast and interview our sources and just kind of do like real kind of gonzo journalism and get to the root of some of these really interesting stories, kind of like a Vice News angle with it, but more with some more humor behind it. That's kind of
awesome.
The way we're trying to tackle journalism.
Yeah. So through the podcast, you're vicariously like living out your desires to be a journalist. That's what you're explaining.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
Awesome. I don't like doing the hard stuff, like the hard political stuff. I don't like taking a stance on something and then posting a clip about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like talking about just interesting stories that don't really have a political agenda.
No, I love that about you guys, right? Like it's lighthearted and it's fun, and it's like a bros podcast. It's like a fraternity in a way.
Right.
So like that was the impression I got when I was filming behind the scenes, taking it in. through my lens, I was kind of like reminiscent of my high school experience, like with my friends, and I was like, wow, like I don't know, do you ever have that where you think back and like imagine if I started this, or maybe you have already. I think you're a bad example, but for myself, I wish I had the tools, the resources, maybe the incentive to start a podcast way back and interview like the people I grew up with in a way, because they were just characters on their own, you know? So that's awesome,
Yeah.
man. I'm glad you stuck to it, because it's the arts I was explaining to you before the podcast. You know, my experience I was telling you about clients and things like that. It's a turbulent business. You know, people
Mhm.
don't realize, like on Instagram, you know, you were sincere enough. You complimented my work, and I really appreciate that. But the reality is, man, it's like, it's just whatever you see on face value, right? Like you don't really see what goes behind that, what's involved, right? The gritty nature that's required, the tenacity. So that's why I enjoy speaking to creatives like yourself. I kind of respect you know, where you're coming from. It wasn't easy probably to be told you're getting kicked out of school, and I'm sure your Italian parents were like, "What the hell?"
I didn't tell them, bro.
Right? Oh, okay. So this
So it took me
this
a while to
podcast
tell
not
them.
getting released. Thank God we're not Joe Rogan experience. Dad's driving home. He's like, "What the?" No, I'm saying like it makes sense. Like that's a tough pill to swallow. Like telling your parents that. So nothing was. I know I stay on the subject. So nothing was made out of that. Like they didn't invite you back. Like you weren't able to get a degree in journalism because of that in Carleton. That is.
No, yeah,
Wow.
they wouldn't let me back in the program. I was still in the school though. I just had to switch programs, so I
Yeah.
dropped down a level to communications.
But you still graduated. Like you still pursued something else, or no?
I graduated, but I graduated in 2020, man. So my graduation didn't happen, and I never got a diploma. So I actually don't know if I technically graduated or not.
Shit, that's scary shit. Let's follow up with
Yeah,
the
I should
registrar's
probably
office
check
right
that
after
out.
this.
Check that out.
Right? I know. No, that's great, man. Well, as long as you know that you feel like you graduated, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
I
got the
think I did.
transcript, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I did.
Exactly. Well, nowadays the reason why I'm kind of like laughing about it and taking it so lightheartedly, if you're talking to a boomer, they'd be like, "How could you?" You know, is because as we know, right, with today's market, like people get jobs based on their TikTok accounts. You know, like I was recently like experiencing that myself. Like, just how did you get that job? Oh, you have this amount of subscribers on YouTube. Like, this is crazy. And we've entered that age, especially our kind of industries. Like, you're not going to be getting jobs. Like, I think Addison Rae was a journalist or a reporter for the UFC briefly, and then there was so much backlash. Do you remember something crazy like that?
Yeah.
So I think of people like you that like actually had to go to school and they're being told you're never going to work for CBC, and you have this like Instagram model influencer getting job, like, you know, because she always wanted to be a journalist, so they granted her that wish, you know. It's possible out there. So anyone that's you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy too, because we have like people from Carleton journalism that work with us at Down on the Wire, and I'm teaching them, I feel like, way more than they actually learned in school, because I'm like trying to get them to do like real journalism work when like we're trying to chase these stories that we find. And I'm just like, what'd you guys do?
You're in the thick.
Carleton, you know?
That's what it is, man. That's what I've experienced as a filmmaker, right? I never went to film school. I never had a network or an environment or connections that kind of promoted that. I was always, you know, surrounded by the business centric kind of individuals, you know, Italian families, construction, things like that. So what I'm saying is that you have these people coming out of film school that can't get jobs or don't know where to start or don't even know how to comprise a film on their own, which is sad to say, but it's the reality. And you have me that has never done that. Now, the only reason why I'm commending myself is because I'm saying that's because I threw myself in the ringer, as they call it, right? It's like I put myself out there and I've gone through the repetitions to understand, like, how do I become best at this craft? I didn't rely on the theory of a textbook to teach me. So for yourself, right, you're learning about journalism by going at it with your buddy, you know, like going through the ringer and seeing what works and what doesn't. And in that, you're inheriting the skills of a journalist.
Yeah, man, that's the only way to do it, is to just jump in with 2 feet. Like I said earlier, like you just got to go for it. And
that's awesome.
You're never going to learn something by watching hours of YouTube videos or going to school and learning about the theory of filmmaking or the theory of journalism. You got to just go in and do it. And if for journalism, like, go through what it's like to chase a story and break something, you know, or if you're a filmmaker, like, grab a camera, like, shoot stuff. Don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can only learn so much through a teacher, through a video on YouTube, right? You just got to tackle it yourself. And I've learned so much doing that. And I feel like my experience has done me way better than any, schooling I would have had to have gone through, or that I did go through, because I still learned some stuff about media through communications, and I learned nothing compared to what I've learned through just by doing stuff through Down to the Wire and like this whole journey I've been on.
It's through action, man. Yeah, because I studied, like I said, marketing management at a university, and it was only until I established my own production company, 94 Productions, and started garnering clients and understanding the power of marketing and networking, that I appreciated my discipline. Like what I studied in university. Because when you're in university, man, you're applying it to case studies that already happened in the past, and you're doing Scantron tests about definitions, about certain terminology. But then when you're actually like developing your own business, you realize like, wow, this is now I got to apply these theories into practice,
Yeah, because the podcast is part of like Down to the Wire is also the name of the company, and then the Down to the Wire podcast.
I was just gonna say, I have a feeling, yeah, it's a production house, and then this is just one of the branches. Yeah, one of the things.
I feel that with you as well, is like, yeah, like starting a company is like, you learn a lot. Like I've learned so much just through starting a company, and what really comes with that they can't really teach you, man. Because I've talked to some friends of mine that went to business school, and I was like, man, I wish I went to like business school instead of journalism and then dropping into communications, because I feel like that was just a waste of time. I could actually learn something from business school. And they're like, dude, I went to business school. You're way further ahead than I am right now. Just because you've gone through it, and you're learning so much as you go. And I'm like, damn, yeah, it's crazy. I feel like, yeah, school, I think it's a good thing. But at the same time, I feel like depending on what you want to do, experience, like actual life experience, will always be superior.
Yeah, it's really, to a certain extent, it can only help you, right? I learned that the hard way. I learned that from being on that tour, right? The amount of creatives that I came across and encountered, the connections that I've made. These guys aren't studying at the Toronto Film School, you know what I mean, or New York Film Arts University, or whatever have you. Like they're in the grind, they're hustling. They know people that know people. They're constantly at networking events or shows, or DMing people nonstop, relentlessly, and it's inspiring in a way, right? But everyone also, as a reminder, has their own path, right? And you can't dictate everyone's pace, right? Like I'm not going to be on this podcast and preach everybody should start a podcast. A, it could not be for them, and second, and B, it's like, they're not maybe at that time in their life where it's something that they're going to consider.
If you're listening, please don't start a podcast. There's already too much competition out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like let's not fucking saturate the market even more. We got enough quality podcasts right now. But that's what it is, man. I'm so happy you mentioned about the podcast, like making a jokingly remark about it. That's the reality, right? I always wanted to start a podcast, probably even before the pandemic. I just never really had the fortitude, like just sat down, the initiative, I mean, to sit down and like do it. And then I think the podcast, like with the pandemic, like with many people, served as a catalyst. But no, nevertheless, as the podcast has proven for yourself, like for me, it's done wonders for my career and my brand, which is what I want to get into, like about kind of like the negative side, because I know as creatives, as much as it's all fine and dandy and we're having a great time here, there are the odd time where we have like setbacks, whether it's coming from ourselves or from the people around us. So when creatives set their ambitions on developing a project or pursuing an endeavor, they tend to desire grand success without the possible consideration of judgment or disapproval. And as you continue to conduct the podcast with your friend John and gradually increase its popularity amongst audiences, there may come a point, if not already, where people relay their negative comments and perceptions toward what you've created. What type of negative feedback have you or your podcast received?
Yeah, a lot.
Really?
I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. No, I asked that question because two things. You could respond and say, no, we're not there yet. Like people have been so like,
we're there.
You're there. Yeah. Okay. I got to hear this. So what's going on? Like what kind of negative feedback?
It's just funny, when you post like a video, whether it's like a full episode or like clips that you have of it on YouTube,
right?
I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's just hate speech in the comments. And you're just like, damn, like people like really just, because you know what it is? Like when people like your content, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to be like, I like that. And then keep scrolling. Whereas like if they hate your comment 9 times, or they don't like what you're doing, 9 times out of 10, they're going to post some crazy shit in your comments, just
Oh my
hating on it.
God. Yeah.
So I feel like people that like our content, please engage more. Like, because I know you guys are out there because we have a very consistent listenership, like fan base.
Right.
People come up to me in person when they see me and like talk about it.
Oh, that's
It's
awesome.
just
So you're
when it comes to
recognized
online
in
though,
Ottawa?
it's just people that don't like us.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're recognized in Ottawa. Like people are you're a familiar face, like a public figure.
Yeah, like I wanted to say, I think we're getting there. I think there's
Okay.
sometimes something like last night I just went out to an art show and I got
Nice.
recognized by a couple people, which is always kind of cool.
Nice.
It feels cool. I mean, what was it? We were somewhere else. We were in a parking garage because we just went to a game. We were shooting content at this basketball game.
Nice.
Capital Hoops. It's like Carleton versus Ottawa. There's a rivalry, so we're shooting some content at it. And we're just in the parking lot. Someone just yelled across the thing like, "Yo, down on the wire!" And
Yeah.
we just like put our hands on like, "Yeah, that's dope. That's dope." So
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it's
yeah.
cool. John gets recognized more than I do. I like to think it's because of the way he looks. Maybe people just like him better than me. I don't care as long as they're tuning in. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Right. No, as long as they're tuning in for sure. So yeah, that's unfortunate to hear. No one wants to hear that their podcast is getting shade. Do you think it's directed towards you, or have you found it's directed towards yourself, or your co-host, or is it like what you guys are spewing, like the content? What do you think it is usually?
I think it's because we have I think it's because we haven't really honed in our niche and our actual audience yet. I think we're still finding that. So we are getting just a general group of people tuning in to our stuff when they come across, whether it's like clips on YouTube or clips on social media platforms. Because our style of comedy on the show, it's kind of like when you look at other shows like, Tiny Meat Gang podcast or like Going Deep with Chad and JT or like even like Pardon My Take, like they kind of have like with their humor, they've done it for so long that they've found their audience. So now people know what they're getting into when they go into it. So sometimes when we have a clip and we're kind of talking like we're making some kind of like just dumb jokes about some sort of topic, we're getting people that think we actually mean that. You know what I mean? Rather
Right,
than
I
people
understand.
tune into our stuff and like, no, that's just like kind of the way these guys are. You know what I mean? Like it'd be kind of like if like someone who'd never listened to TMG tuned into an episode and like thought they were actually just being serious the whole time. And it's just like, nah, dude. So I think we're still just finding our audience, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe they just hate the way I look. That's cool. Maybe they just hate the stuff we're saying. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. You're
it's
never
just-
gonna appease everyone, right? Like that's what I kind of learned about being creative. It's a fine balance and it's a risk. You don't know how
Yeah.
it's gonna stick, right?
No, and it's tough because you got to just kind of be like, you don't care what people think, and you just got to kind of brush it off your shoulders. But we're in entertainment, so it's like obviously we're in this because we're attention seekers. Like we're in this
Yeah, in a
because
way, yeah.
something's wrong with us. Where we're
For
like,
sure.
hey, I need to
Yeah.
put this out for everyone to see. Give me your attention. So it's
We're
tough to
blatant
also
about
just
it.
be like, oh, I don't care what people think. Like obviously when I read those YouTube comments, I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? Like there's one video we did. We had Doovie, who's an artist on the podcast, who's an artist, and we had him on the podcast. And he just clowned me and John for like 15 minutes straight for this interview.
Someone that
And
commented?
we posted it and it took off this video. And
Oh,
like
nice.
there was
Okay.
hundreds of comments. And half the comments were like, wow, Doovie's being an asshole right now. And the other half of the comments were like just roasting John and I and making fun of us. And that video still gets views to this day. That was like 6-7 months ago. And it still gets like tons of views. Like I think it just got 50 views yesterday as well. Like it just keeps chugging in views. It's like pushing 20K now. And it's just like
The comments are just
I
nasty.
still get comments. There's a comment like 2 days ago, someone just like clowning us. And I was just like, damn, like this happened so long ago. I'm still like getting shit for it. So it's just like all you can really do from it is learn from it. So because sometimes people are valid, sometimes it's just like, oh, this guy's just being a troll on YouTube. But sometimes someone comments something and you're just kind of like, yeah, no, you're kind of right. And then you just kind of learn from it. It's funny because I was talking to my friend about this the other day, where I was talking about a couple interviews, including that Doobie one that just didn't really go that well. And I just kind of reflected on them being like, oh, maybe like I should have, like the way they started off, I could have like said this at the start, made the intro a bit better. I could have framed my question like that, maybe took this conversation there. And I feel like it could have gone a lot better. He's like, that's crazy, bro, because that's the same way I think about it when I'm talking to girls. Like afterwards,
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, I should have like said that, or I should have done that. I'm like, yeah, no, that's just kind of how I think about it when it comes to the podcast. But just always improving, you know, and it's just taking certain negative comments with a grain of salt and being like, okay, this guy's just trolling, but also taking some as like critical, you know, feedback and being like, all right, maybe there's something here that I can build on.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say like with talking to girls, because like with the arts, right? Or the entertainment business, it's a no formula. You know, what works on one girl would not work on another girl. It really depends on
Yeah.
who's on the other end. No, I'm serious, and I know that from experience, and I've seen that with my friends. You know, it's like you said that and it worked. You know what I mean? It just depends, right? Who's watching it and how they perceive you, and if they like you, right? Like some people just have that charisma, that X factor. Not to say that you
Exactly.
don't, but definitely like as you progress, as you keep going, you'll realize, like you said, your niche market, and you'll also maybe work that for yourselves. You know what I mean? Like some podcasts or characters, like I think of Machine Gun Kelly, they're notoriously polarizing on purpose, and that's what makes them even more famous.
Mhm.
So not to say that you're going to be this edgy, like rebellious, like who I don't care, but who knows? Maybe it's like you're a Howard Stern type of show where you just have these like provocative, kind of like senseless views on the world, or articles or guest appearances, right? And if so be it, if that finds an audience, then go ahead, but don't be bogged down by a group of people, especially if it's a small group that are attacking, right? Because what I've learned as a creative is people are always going to have something to say. Like I remember just recently, man, I'm a huge PlayStation fanboy. I love it to death. The franchise, the brand I'm saying, since I was a child, but also like just how much it evolved, not only its own brand, but gaming, the industry. And I just don't care for Xbox at all. And I just commented something. It was some sort of article about Xbox suing PlayStation, whatever, for rights or something. And I just commented like, PlayStation, sorry, Xbox is so desperate to stay relevant at this point. And I'm not kidding you, still now to this day, it was like 3 days old, this comment. People are like commenting and posting, freaking out, saying like I'm a fucktard and like go fuck
Yeah.
yourself, and saying like, wow, this guy has no brain cells. But what I'm saying is like some are like giving me legitimate like paragraphs of information of like why
Yeah.
I'm stupid to say that. Other people are just calling me names, and I'm laughing, and I kind of like that I posted it out there, because some guy even commented went as far as to be like, still have time to take it down. And I'm thinking, no, why would I take it down? Like, I understand if I went out of my way and I'm like,
Yeah.
my take on a hot button issue, like, transphobia and all this stuff, right? But I'm literally like saying a comment that a lot of people probably find fair. And it's just amazing to me how so many people get triggered off of something that's so stupid if you think about it. Like, who gives a shit if you're
Yeah.
an Xbox guy? You see my comment and you're getting triggered by that? Like, just go play Xbox. You know what I mean? Like, why are
Yeah.
you like, bro, people are spending time writing paragraphs about why they hate my comment. And I'm like dying. So what I'm saying is like, there comes to a point, right, where, like you said, you're mature about it to be open-minded and say, hey, this is constructive criticism. Let me take this in. Let me understand how I can improve myself. Because sometimes it is, right? You don't know if maybe an intro's cheesy, or maybe an edit's your editing style is kind of looking cheap. But when you have people just like attacking you for the sake of attacking you, like, bro, like, why are you wearing those fucking glasses? Like, fucking idiot. Like, people, a lot of these people are coming from a place of hurt. You know what I mean? Think about it. Like, when was the last time? I can't think of the last time I went out of my way to comment on someone's profile to make them feel bad. I'll say it in my head, like maybe a nasty comment, whatever, in my head to myself. But to go out of my way and write it down, like the energy it requires. Can you say that for yourself, man? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever put yourself in those
Yeah.
shoes and say, like, the person replying to me and responding to me, like, first of all, what have they done? I don't see them
Yeah.
going through the ringer, as I call it, to do a podcast. And second of all, it's like, how much energy and time do they have to go out of their way to hurt someone?
Yeah, I know. It's I do think that too, especially when it's like a brick of a paragraph and you're like, bro, like, yeah.
Bro, they're writing like essays, and it's like, bro, like, we're literally talking about McDonald's. Like, what's the problem? Like, you know what I mean? Like I understand if you guys are talking about Trump, like something political, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
polarizing. But some people, like my proven thing, like video games, what's going on in today's world with the economy and the wars and things like that. It's like people are getting triggered because I said PlayStation is better than Xbox. Like,
Mhm.
chill. And it is.
People, I think, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so like polarizing with that.
You should get a sponsorship deal.
Yeah, I want
But,
that PS logo right now up in the corner.
Yeah. I think people are just bored though. you know?
Yeah, 100%, man.
And they're just looking for something to do. And if some people look for something to do and actually be creative with it, and I don't know, for me, it's making a podcast. For you,
Got to
it's
channel that
pursuing
energy.
film.
Yeah.
Other people get bored and they just, you know, smoke some weed and shit post on Twitter. You know, I mean, everyone's got their thing. I think that's kind of an art form too. There's some really funny shit posts and
Oh yeah,
like,
no,
memes out
like
there.
I'm all for it in the sense like some people. I'm just saying is maybe because like I know you, right, as a person. This is what people fail to understand is like when you start to understand the person as a human being, you wouldn't go so far as to hurt them unless you have something wrong with your head. But I just don't understand like going from constructive criticism to like blatant insults. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
no need to insult you or like take it too far. You know, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
But again, preaching to the wrong choir. Like there are people like you said gonna smoke some weed, do their shit, and hide behind a screen, right? But everyone can just learn from it, like not to go out of your way to do it. But that's awesome, man. Yeah.
You slowly get used to it. People like making negative comments about you.
It's important, man. It's important to become desensitized. Like me, it hardens me, right? Like it's kind of
Yeah.
like years ago, I'll be honest, if I looked at those comments with the whole PlayStation, Xbox, as funny as frail as that might sound, I would take it to heart and be like, oh, like maybe I should take it down. Like I don't want to.
Mhm.
But I've been through so much as a creative where it's like I see that and I'm just like, who cares? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, who cares at this point? Like, does it really matter? Is it really gonna affect me as a person? No. So that's what I kind of like my if I can pass on any wisdom to yourself or to the audience, it's like just keep doing what you're doing and know that what you're doing, a lot of people can't even fathom or do it themselves, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
keep killing it, man. So as we talk about the negativity of the podcast and you've gotten some hate, what motivates you most to continue podcasting despite maybe not reaching those desired audience numbers? Because I know sometimes we're always looking to get that viral hit, or receiving glorious recognition from the entertainment industry.
That's a great question, man. Because it's a dangerous game. I mean, it's crazy. Like everyone loves the recognition, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want, is to be recognized for the work you put out. Sometimes it's really frustrating when you put together a really great episode. Maybe you have a guest on that episode who said some really awesome things, you providing some like real value, and then it gets 12 views in the first 48 hours on YouTube, and you're just like, damn. But what kind of keeps you going through that is just, if you really believe in what you're doing. And I tell my guys this too, my whole team, I'm like, listen, I can't guarantee you guys anything. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that we're going to be the best podcast or be the media giant in North America. I can't guarantee any of that. But what I can guarantee is that down the line, you're going to look back at this time and be like, did I give it my all? Am I proud of what I created and what I put out there? That's the only guarantee.
I love
so
that.
that's kind of what keeps me going is like, do I love what I'm putting out there? And if the answer is no, how do I mix it up? How do I pivot into doing something that I actually like to create? And that's why now, like when we just make jokes, funny news stories, I'm kind of just not over it, but I'm like, yo, let's start interviewing these people. Let's get sources in here. Let's kind of do some real journalism, provide some more value to people. And also like me, that's kind of, I like being on the podcast, but it's also just as fun, like chasing these stories behind the scenes and locking down sources and doing these phone calls and meeting them in person and whatever it is, so that's kind of what keeps me going. Is just like, how am I gonna, how do I want to navigate through life? And this is the only way I can really imagine navigating through life. I've worked a ton of jobs growing up, and I hated my life every day when I would have to wake up and go do some job that I never wanted to do. And I tried things in a lot of different fields. This is the only thing that really keeps me going. There's really real tough days where, you're not making any money or you're literally starving and there's nothing's really going for you. Nothing's getting views. You're getting people roasting you in the comments on YouTube. Yeah. But you just kind of stick through it because it's like, what else would I be doing right now? You know what I mean? Clocking into some job that doesn't care about me, that I don't care about, that's not gonna, it's not, money's not the motivator. It's like my legacy is the motivator. Like, how do I want people to remember me, and how do I want to be remembered by, like, whether it be my friends, my family, and all that. So that's kind of what keeps me going.
Yeah, I love that answer, man. It reminds me of myself, the legacy. Like we're doing something that's bigger than ourselves. I was having many creators I talked to about this, but more specifically a recent director, Derek Delson. We were talking about being the title of the podcast episode. Funny enough, do something that's bigger than yourself. And he was explaining to me how his whole career essentially is not only his affinity for movies, right, and his strong passion, his desire to make it, but it's also a loving tribute to his late father, right? So when you hear that, it's like it's bigger than the vanity. You know what I mean? It's not about, the clicks and the likes and the subscribers and the adulation. It's about doing something again that's like uncomprehensible to someone in the comments that's being nasty, right? That's
Mhm.
being negative towards your craft. And this is what I was trying to harken back to about, people being negative and purposely being insulting to kind of bring you down. They don't realize like why you're doing this, right? Like a lot of people, yes, they're doing it maybe for attention or their likes and clicks. There's a lot of that out there. I deal with it all the time when I go on YouTube. It's like, why are these people existing, right? And there's people like us, there's a small pocket where it's like they're doing it because there's a legacy. There's actually a genuine interest in the medium, in the platform, in people. And for you, gauging from this podcast, I'll be honest with you, like before I had this interview with you, I really didn't understand down to the wire, in the sense of the meaning behind it, like what you guys were trying to do. I took it as like a bunch of guys, like your boys, like getting together and shooting the shit. And although it comes across with that aura, like that persona, what I kind of understand now, it's like a Vice, right? Like the Vice journalist kind of way.
Mhm.
It's like an edgy, kind of satirical commentary on, again, current events and pop culture. And I enjoyed even more like listening to you, because this is what I mean by understand the human being behind it. You start to understand that you have a more meaningful purpose as to why you created this down to the wire podcast in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. Because it's tough to convince people through a screen that you're worth their time.
Of
So
course.
I
Yeah.
think what we're doing a lot now in our marketing strategies is real ground level guerrilla marketing. Get in front of these people in person. We're doing a lot of street videos, but mainly pop
That'd be
up podcasts.
That's
So
awesome.
we do a pop up podcast in locations around the city where myself or John, there'll be two chairs, it'll be one of us, and then just random people on the streets that get to sit down, and we do quick little 60-second podcasts with just strangers and just people that are in Ottawa, and then we get to know them over the course of a minute, crack some jokes, talk about whatever, and then afterwards, we built that connection with them, and they're like, wow, this is really cool, who are you guys, whatever, and then
Yeah.
they follow us. And now when they follow us, it's not just a dead follower on our total followers count, it's just someone who actually genuinely had a connection with us. And they're going to actually care about when they see our face on their phone now, rather than just being some random guy just making dick jokes. They're
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, I remember that guy. That guy was funny, or that guy said something really cool, or, those guys had like made my day for 60 seconds. I was having a real rough day. And then I walked past this pop-up podcast. They invited me on the show, and then, we ended up having fun about it. But that's what it is. I want to build it, because that's why I started it, right? Was to build
Right.
that community aspect. So that's why it's important to me to actually connect with people in real life, because I want them to connect with the show, and I want to create that sense of community. And I want that to live out longer than me. I want Down the Wire to outlive me, so it just keeps going forever.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the great ambition to have. And we often forget this because we live in a digital age that reminds us of all these, excellent creatives that have achieved momentous success at such an early age. But the reality is we're still young, relatively, that is. I'm still in my 20s. But it is true. What I'm trying to get at is like, I know it's we laugh, we smirk, whatever, but especially in the entertainment industry, like we're babies. Like I deal with so many entrepreneurs or colleagues, and I'm referred to people, and like being a director, that is, I'm 28 years old, bro. I've spoke to like a very influential individual in the entertainment industry recently. Like I had an interview with him, and he told me like, you're young, like young as fuck, like you're a baby. And he's right. Like the film that I went to a screening for, I had special tickets. They wanted me to go see. The director was 60 years old, killed it. Like the film was amazing, but you're watching it and you're like, wow, like whoever made this, like how did they get that far or whatever? And you realize like, wow, they're 60. Like they've been doing it, you know what I mean, when you were not even born. So you have to understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's what I kind of admire about you, right? It's kind of like, yeah, you got to go through the woes. It's like, sometimes there's some setbacks, but you're going after something that's genuine. and that is the legacy and uplifting someone's day. Like I love that. It's like for me, sometimes I'll get a few likes on something I worked really hard on, and then there'll be some guy that like randomly comment or post on YouTube, like for instance this past weekend, and say, "Yo, I love your content, keep it up. Like I just subscribe to you. I'm gonna follow for more." And I'm like, "Whoa, that like I just made someone's day." You know what I mean?
That's
Imagine
awesome.
if I robbed them of that, right? Because I didn't, find it in the courage in myself to post it, right? So love that nobility in you, man. And yeah, I really enjoy that. I
Yeah,
want to
that's
know, like,
awesome though, man.
yeah, thank you.
Just because you like that just reminded me real quick. Because yeah, there's been moments where I've been real down, just being like, damn, like this show's not really growing. And then I'll get a DM from someone being like, hey, this last episode is really funny, man. Like, listen to it on my drive
Yeah,
from Pennsylvania to New York. And I'm just like, damn, okay, that made my day. Like, I don't care if this
right.
episode gets no more views after that. Like, that's really what I'm doing it for. You know what I mean? It's just like, if I can make one person's day, like, that's a real powerful thing that I just did. And that's awesome. So there's no better feeling than that, whether it's one person or like 100 people. So
100%. Well said, man. So before we go, I want to know from you one last thing. What advice would you give to those looking to host their own podcast or break into a creative industry that yet struggle with not knowing where to begin?
you're gonna find out real quick if you really want to do it. You know,
Right.
give it 3 months. You know, anything you want to try. After 3 months, you know, you're gonna go through that ringer that you keep bringing up, and
Yeah.
it's true, man. You're really gonna find out if you want to do it. I remember I had a meeting when I started the podcast, back in like 2018. The company like it really officially started in 2020, but I kind of already
Right.
started the podcast in 2018. But anyways, my friend of mine was like, you should talk to my entrepreneurship professor. You know, he might be able to help you out. And I was like, okay, cool. So I meet up with him
Yeah.
and I tell him down the wire and what I'm trying to think and yada yada. And I just started off at this point. And he looked at me, he just said, I'm gonna tell you what, you're gonna lose interest in this time next year, if not sooner. My suggestion is you find a way to try and sell this show to some network or to someone and make a quick, you know, few bands off of it and then just pivot onto your next endeavor. And that really hit me because I was like, man, like, I don't think I'm going to lose interest in this. Like, this is something that I really feel passionate about. This isn't just a business I'm trying to start because I think I can make a lot of money off it right off the bat and sell it to an investor. Like, I'm trying to start this business because I think it can create a culture, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really get that. You know, that was like 5 years ago now. And I still have a lot of interest in it and I still want to do it. And that's what keeps me going is like, yo, like I actually really want to do this, you know?
Right.
So for people that when they start off something, you know, I think it's a stat like 80% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. So it's like a lot of people, that number is not exact, but it's a high number. It's a high number that a lot of people don't even make it to 10 episodes. And it's just like, you know, you're going to find out real quick if you want to do it. And it is tough. It's a lot, you know, there's editing involved. There's coming up with content. There's seeking out guests. You're not going to make money off it off the bat. So to convince people to invest their time into doing it just for free.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I'm forever grateful for anyone that wants to be a part of what I'm doing. Cause especially at the start, like we're not making money off of it. So like, I'm forever like in debt to you now for you investing your time into this thing of mine that I created. That's now this thing of ours that, you know, we got going on. So, yeah, I think you're going to find out real quick, you know, if you like it or not. And, just don't be afraid to lean on people. You know, I've leaned on a lot of people. Like I've had a big supporting cast, you know, especially when you're starting off and you don't have any like so-and-so like clout behind your name.
Right.
And people are rocking with you off the start. Okay. Lean on those people. Cause there have been people that have really given me my flowers right from the jump, when I was nothing and I still really am nothing. So people that are still giving me those flowers, like, yeah, I lean on them for advice and they give me their support and I give them my support. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out for help for people, man. Like if people want to see you win, have them in your corner. You know, don't try and do this stuff alone. Because if I try to do this stuff, like one thing I also said was, you know, if it wasn't for me, Down the Wire wouldn't exist. But if it wasn't for everyone else that's involved, it wouldn't be what it is. So what's the point of having something that exists if it's not going to do anything?
Yeah, no, it's for sure. And I'm so happy that you kind of appreciate the collaborative experience. Because like with film, imagine me being a director saying like, you know, I can do it on my own. I don't need anyone. It's definitely not the case. Yeah.
'Cause you totally could. Like, you totally could film something one man. Like, I've seen YouTube videos on that because I've dabbled in it, like how to shoot a film on your own, and you totally could. But it's like, what's like doing?
Well, you're
something with-
limited. What
Yeah.
I should retract that. Yes, of course you can. Like with anything, there's a possibility with anything, and that's how I got to start in my career. I would just do short films in downtown Toronto by myself with a tripod, no music, no nothing. No sound recordist, actors involved. I was the actor. It was just very raw, run and gun. Obscure, like abstract. The visuals told the story, but you're limited, and especially the stories that I want to tell and I want to convey, and the short films that I'll eventually send you, and the one I sent you before this podcast, you'll see why I need a team, right? Why I require people is because the stories only become more sophisticated and advanced, and if you want to make them compelling and hard hitting, they require experts in certain fields that you can delegate those tasks to, right? There's a director is like the leader of a ship, right? Like, sorry, a captain rather, and you can't man a ship by yourself. There's maintenance, there's crew, there's weapon, artillery, there's all these like different things that require other people, so you can't you know what I mean? It's just not doable. It's not humanly possible to do it all yourself, and I don't want to, right? Like I've recently doing a project right now where I used to edit the whole thing, including the music and the dialogue, and I was a sound mixer and the sound effects and all these different things, and it was a short film, 7 minutes, so it was doable, but it was also time constraining, right? And imagine that. I want to get into features. Can I be doing that as a feature film director? No. Do I want to? No, because I'm not skilled in all those areas. Yes, of course, I have a comprehension. I can I have some sort of skill set that I can apply to, right? I'm the auteur. I kind of have a vision for the project. But there are people that are more qualified than me, that are more talented than me in those areas that can enhance that experience, right? So it's very important, like you said, to kind of remember it's a collaborative process, that there's people out there willing to help you. Don't see always the cynicism behind it, especially if you get the negative comments. And we're all in this together, right? Like the important thing is that we're doing our best to create something meaningful. And through those experiences, we'll understand and become better individuals ourselves. So
it's interesting too, because I think I heard Tarantino say something similar to that, where he's like,
Tarantino's my guy. What did he say?
I think you might know then. I think I saw an interview clip of him being like, don't, basically same kind of thing, like don't try and do it all on your own. Like someone asked him, he's just like, I'm not good at like certain things.
He was
I'll hire a ton of people. Like if you're
Yeah.
really good at costume design, like you come up with the costumes, or like you come up with this, you do that,
To shed some light on that, he was at a film festival, and he was like at my level, like my age kind of thing. I think he was like late 20s, early 30s, where he was just trying to figure out the ropes of the business. Like, how do I make my film look like yours? Like, how did you become that good? And he's like, my job is to be the director. My job is to have the vision and know how to execute it. Your job is not to know how to knit the costume. Your job isn't to know what light and what light bulb should be used or what lenses. So when I heard that speech, bro, I'm not kidding. This is what triggered like me to really go full throttle in this career. I said to myself, I know exactly what I need to do. I need to just know how to tell a fucking badass, compelling story, and everything else will follow. And so far, so good. People have been attracted to my career because of that, because I know how to put a story together and I make them evoke an emotion. I make them feel something. Like with you were complimenting my behind the scenes vlogs, right? You said your content's really cool. I didn't go to school for that. If you ask me the technical uses that I use, like, I can tell you the lens I use in the camera, but am I going to start saying, at this, area I used ISO and shutter speed was for this because this lighting was, I swear to God, bro, that's not how I talk. I just say, how do we make this shot as compelling as possible? And how do we captivate the audience? That's how I work. That's how my mind works. So I knew from day one, I wanted to be a director. I knew that I wanted to be the guy that would delegate to achieve, the vision together as a collective audience, collective group. But when I heard that speech, man, that's why I named 94 Productions 94 Productions. Not only it's the year I was born, 1994, but it's the same year Tarantino made his breakthrough in the film industry with Pulp Fiction. So it means a lot to me when he said that speech. Yeah, he's this rebel, he's this outsider, but he's a badass, and he proved everybody wrong by breaking the rules. And yeah, I love him. I love him to death for that. And I one day hope to share that adulation with him.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And just to also add to that, I think when you're also building a team, obviously you don't do it all on your own, but also just be conscious of playing to people's strengths.
Exactly.
Because I got a lot of guys on my team that I learned really quickly, you can't just make every certain people do certain things. Like some guys
100%.
just
Yeah.
they're just not good at editing. So why am I trying to get you to edit this thing for me? But
Yeah.
but you're really good
Don't
at
push,
writing.
yeah.
So write blogs.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like
Understand your
playing to
specialty,
people's
yeah.
strengths. You know what I mean? And really maximizing everyone's strengths, including yourselves. Play to your strengths as well. You know, you can also try to improve your weaknesses, but don't waste years trying to improve your weaknesses when you could have capitalized on your strengths and had people where their strengths are your weaknesses and you guys just grow together.
Exactly. Well said, man. And on that note, I really appreciate you, Jacob, for coming on the podcast, sharing your beautiful, wise insights on, you know, how to become seriously, man, like a more compelling creative.
Thank
You know, someone that has a story, a meaning, a purpose, I should say, that transcends who you are, and doing it all for the favor of leaving behind a legacy.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on, fellow Paisan. Always good to chop it up with you.
Exactly.
The hair's looking great.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
The hair's
I've been
looking
growing it
great.
out. Yeah.
No, I really appreciate it, man, because I'm really fond of your work. You made that behind the scenes vlog you did at our studio when you were following Nima on tour look really good, but also your other stuff I've seen, man. Like
Appreciate you, man.
I'm excited to see where you go with it, man. And I have a real soft place in my heart for film. You know, that's something I want to dive into too. I'm working on a documentary myself right now.
Oh, sick. Congrats. Yeah.
So that's an area I really find a lot of interest in, man. So yeah, let's talk more in the future, man. Like I'd love to continue to learn from you, see what you keep making. I'd love to watch anything you come out. I'd love to check it out, man. And yeah, whenever you're in Ottawa, let me know.
Yeah, 100%. We'll definitely hit it up and chill. I got a good friend actually that lives in Ottawa, so that might actually happen sooner than expected. So I'm looking forward to you know, connecting with you again. It's always appreciative to have people that not only sympathize with the filmmaking experience, but you know, have an appreciation for it. So thank you again, you know, Jacob Racco, for coming on the podcast, sharing those insights. Thank you everybody else for listening, and we'll talk soon.